Hey there, welcome back for another episode. We're talking still about thyroid and various aspects of it so you can break it down and see what applies to you and help yourself feel better. Today's topic is on Hashimoto's, root causes of this, and why autoimmune thyroid disease isn't just a genetic thing. We're often told that. Most people hear your immune system is attacking your thyroid, but they're not told why it started, why now, why it keeps progressing. In fact, it's sort of like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just the same as regular old hypothyroidism. And then we keep on keeping on, feeling kind of stuck. Hashimoto's is not bad luck. It's a loss of immune tolerance driven by environment and susceptibility. Let's talk about what Hashimoto's actually is. Let's clarify some things. This is not primarily an endocrine disorder. It's an immune system dysregulation affecting the thyroid gland. So the immune system shifts from tolerance to basically being in persistent surveillance all the time, being in survival mode. It attacks your thyroid gland. This creates chronic inflammatory signaling against your thyroid tissue, which will affect its function. There are a couple ways that we can look at this besides looking at some symptoms, but we need to understand some things about our lab tests we talked about in the first episode about antibodies. So there's TPO antibody and TG antibody, thyroid peroxidase and thyroglobulin. Let's see why this is important for deep diving into your labs. TPO antibodies, if they're elevated, will show that there's an immune reaction to your thyroid hormone and it's producing those enzymes. And then thyroglobulin antibodies are immune recognition of thyroid structural proteins. So antibodies will often rise years before the thyroid function declines. That's why when we see any increase in them, even if they're not out of range, we want to kind of go on an attack to help decrease the reasons why antibodies are rising, because we do not want that thyroid gland to be attacked. This is a disease process that starts long before diagnosis. Let's talk about why some of these things happen. Kind of the first thing that I see most often is gut permeability issues, and that increases this immune activation. We talk about gut protocols and that kind of thing, but we're just going to talk some high level here about the gut. But when the intestinal barrier becomes dysregulated, the immune system is exposed to substances it shouldn't see. It's basically having to be vigilant about all the things that it's, potentially being exposed to. And when we have cross reactivity to things, this alone can increase your immune system's interaction. And it doesn't alone cause Hashimoto's, but it definitely lowers the threshold for your immune system to kind of misidentify things. And it comes down to some things with specific foods too, especially with autoimmunity and Hashimoto's. Let's look at some common triggers that will stack together. And this is something that becomes, a cluster of burdens that basically cause your body to overflow and it just can't deal with it anymore. Then this is when we get into this autoimmune thyroid situation. So it's a cumulative burden, really. It's not just one single villain doing all this damage to your thyroid. It can shift from immune signaling patterns over a long term. Things like chronic stress, changes in your immune regulations, not just from stress and the cortisol like we talked about last episode, food reactivity. So this is, specific to each person. And it doesn't mean if you have some reaction to something that you have a true allergy to something, but you can be reactive to things when your immune system is dysregulated, when you have leaky gut and those types of things. This will amplify the immune signaling in people who are susceptible, those ones that are chronically stressed, those ones that have potentially an underlying thyroid condition that's just not really identified yet based on the labs we talked about a few episodes ago. You could be susceptible because of nutrient depletion. You may not have the right nutrients on board to help with thyroid hormone conversion, like selenium, zinc, iron, vitamin D, things like that. And with low levels of that, your immune tolerance, of course, becomes less. You have less immune tolerance. If you have a loss of these things, you have a loss of regulation. People think that when they remove their thyroid gland, their autoimmune condition is gone. And that is just not actually true. This is why the removal of it doesn't fix Hashimoto's, or they remove it, or they sometimes give it radiation. So it basically is killed off, essentially is not functioning. But the removing of the thyroid just targets the thyroid. It doesn't actually change the immune balance, the immune system's balance. Autoimmune diseases are systemic and they're sort of more pattern disorders. It's not always an isolated organ failure. It can lead to that, but it's not because of that. So without addressing the immune signaling, the process simply persists. It goes on in the background. It just keeps causing problems in your system. So basically, the goal when someone walks through my door and it's determined they have Hashimoto's, or they already have a diagnosis of, or they're suspicious of that, that's when I refer out to get the proper testing and get the diagnosis, should that make sense for them. But we have to look at how can we work on them foundationally to help support all their systems in their body so that their thyroid doesn't crash out at some point. We're not really just boosting immunity. We're going to restore the regulation of the immune system. The focus in the nutritional space and how I work, and this is in addition to whether or not they're on medication for thyroid disorder, we need to lower the inflammatory burden. That could look like stress reduction. It could look like a different diet for a while to heal the gut. It could look like sleep issues. It could look at anxiety and depression. Definitely looking at blood sugar dysregulation as well. Those are things that we can attack to lower that inflammatory burden to help ease the function of the thyroid a bit. We can support the barrier of the gut. So if you have leaky gut, you're exposing yourself to different food particles that can increase reactivity, which increases inflammation. So healing and sealing that gut is super important, and that's a big part of the process. Again, these are foundational things that need to be in place. And also we need to reduce the activation cues of this chronic stress. That just looks different for everybody. It can be mindfulness, it can be meditation, it can be whatever you can do to reduce stress on a day-to-day basis every single day, not just when you feel like it or just not on the weekends. You have to remove some of those things that keep that activation going. And sometimes you need to work with people to find out what exactly that is. This whole process will shift the immune behavior from being reactive to tolerant. My whole premise of all the programs that I work with is to help you build all the people I work with in my programs, I should say, is to work on resilience, to building up the resilience so that the body can function much better, whether you're talking about your thyroid or your other hormones or whatever it might be. So we have to shift that immune system from being hypervigilant, from being reactive to being on guard all the time, to building that resilience and tolerance to stressors that come your way. You should be able to handle those things, get through them, and then get back down to baseline function. In the next episode, we're going to talk about how when your immune system and your stress signals start to calm, and we create this environment where the thyroid physiology can actually work again, what actually happens when your body starts to recover. I hope this has been helpful. If it resonates, I want you to comment below. Make sure that you get your questions answered. So let me know if you have any questions. We'll answer you right away as soon as we can. And I would love to hear from you. Stay tuned and come back for the next episode. All right, take care. Bye-bye.